This smart silk day dress dates to between 1862 and 1865 and consists of a separate bodice and skirt. It embodies several important fashionable features typical of the first half of the 1860s. The fine silk taffeta used to make this dress has been machine woven with a very even, neat design of checks made up of white and black stripes on a ground of pale blue. The overall effect is one of a soft grey colour, and the silk has a pleasing sheen to it, which would have caught the light and rustled as the wearer moved. The bold decoration consists of lengths of black silk velvet ribbon, which have been applied by hand. It is eye-catching and very typical of the first half of the 1860s. This trend for using a dark ribbon trim on a lighter or checked background was not confined to women's dress. Here it is also seen on a boy's dress from roughly the same period. Boys commonly wore dresses until the age of 2 or 3 during the 19th century. The bodice has a high round neckline and wide bell-shaped sleeves with short slits at the wrists. Bell-shaped sleeves had been fashionable since the last quarter of the 1840s, but had gained width further up the arm during the late 1850s and early 1860s. This can be seen as a ploy to balance the top and bottom halves of the body as skirts grew wider. Crisp white cotton undersleeves, visible at the wrist, were worn beneath. The bodice opens from top to bottom at the centre front and fastens with faceted imitation jet or Vauxhall glass buttons. The separate front fastening bodice was a relatively recent innovation. From around 1815 till the 1850s, women's gowns had been made with the bodice and skirt attached, and the fastenings situated at the back. It is interesting to note that on our gown the shanks of the buttons have small loops at the ends. These have been passed through worked holes in the fabric and secured with a ring behind. This was a time-saving device designed for convenience when cleaning. The rings could be opened slightly and the button removed and then replaced without the need for sewing. The bodice is finished with 2 points at the front, imitating the shape of a man's waistcoat. At the rear, a fishtail or small basque has been cut in one with the rest of the bodice. Internally, the bodice has been lined with white linen. 6 bones have been inserted into the darts. These are likely to be of whalebone. Boning is found in bodices from the 1780s onwards. It gave the garment structure and helped to prevent the fabric from wrinkling and riding up when worn over a boned corset. This silk corset from the Viennese collections dates to 1864 and is likely to be similar in construction and shape to the one originally worn with this gown. It is lined with cotton and boned with whalebone. The split front basque with stud and loop fastenings is a relatively new development in corset design. It was invented around 1829 but did not become widely used until the 1850s. It, along with the front fastening bodice of the gown, enabled women to dress without help. At this date the corset would not have been laced too tightly, as the wide skirts helped to give the impression of a narrow waist. The skirt is fastened with hooks and eyes along a short placket which is hidden within a pleat on the front left. There is a pocket made from white linen set into a skirt seam at the front right-hand side. The skirt itself is lined with sturdy brown linen and finished at the hem with skirt braid, sometimes called brush braid. This tough woolen braid was designed to protect the skirt hem from wear and could be brushed to remove dirt and dust. The long seams of the skirt have been machine stitched. The sewing machine was beginning to be used widely during the 1860s, having been developed along commercial lines during the 1850s. The details of this garment, such as the decoration and seam finishing, have been completed by hand. The skirt has a flat front, with all the fullness found at the back. The voluminous effect is created by means of cartridge pleating. This technique is achieved by gauging or gathering large amounts of fabric to a narrow line, without adding bulk to the seam. Cartridge pleats are produced by making a fold about 2 to 3 inches, 5 to 8 centimetres, from the top edge of the fabric. A long running stitch is sewn about 1/2 inch, 1 centimetre, from the folded edge, and the thread is left loose at either end. This is repeated with 2 more rows below the first, following the line of the first stitches exactly. The 3 threads are knotted securely at one end, and the gathers pulled evenly to create long, narrow pleats. The pleated fabric is attached to the waistband using a whip stitch. Above the cartridge-pleated section, 2 shaped tabs have been added. They make an attractive and fashionable feature at the back of the ensemble when combined with the fishtail of the bodice. The use of such tabs or streamers is very characteristic of the fashions of the early 1860s, though the examples seen in fashion plates are often much larger. The emphasis on decoration at the back leads us to another distinctive feature of the skirt, its shape. Due to the nature of the skirt's construction, it lies relatively flat and close to the body at the front, but extends out at the back. This modification to the original wide domed crinoline style is credited to the couturier Charles Frederick Worth, who is said to have developed and popularised the new flat-fronted form during the early 1860s. It was more practical than the original crinoline. Practicality is relative, but with a flatter front to their gowns it was easier for women to move around and to get closer to both objects and other people. It was necessary to wear a specially shaped crinoline cage under the skirt to create the correct flat-fronted fashionable silhouette, and this shape would eventually develop into the crinolette towards the end of the decade. Returning to the garment itself, the overall effect is that of a smart afternoon ensemble which incorporates a multitude of fashionable elements. It was a highly suitable outfit for a wealthy woman of the 1860s to wear when out visiting or receiving company.